Hello everyone, this is Said from EMBEDONIX, and this time I'm back with the second tutorial of Android. And this time we're going to make together from scratch, of course, a note-taker application. And as the name suggests, a note-taking application is something that you write some notes, give them titles and content, then save them and view them later, or decide to delete them, or anything you like. So let's go over the demo application first. I will describe to you what the application does, and then we go and build the project from scratch. So what you see here is just a list view, and here are the list items. In this case, they are called notes. So every note that the user adds to this application comes to this list view, and it's ordered from newer dates to older dates. And as you can see on the menu, we have a plus sign. I didn't bother to make great graphics. I just wanted to show you some key concepts of Android development. So you are free to change these graphics by yourself. So this one is called the add mode. So when you go to this mode, you can add a new note. For example, here I will add a title. Here is a note. And the content can be something silly like ha 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 ha. Okay, and I said it's a very simple application, but it still gives the user some input validation. For example, if I want to quit without saving, I get this discard changes dialog as a warning that if I really want to discard the changes or I want to save it. So if I click no here and I save it, you see that this new node is already added here. And if I go to the existing node, I can also delete it or update it. For example, here I say, here is a node, and I add something to it. And if I want to cancel it now, I still get this discarded changes, because the application compares the old node with the new node, and if there's a change, it warns the user again. So this time I don't want to save it, and I just want to delete it. And by deleting, of course, you also get a delete warning dialog, and I'm really sure that I want to delete this node because it's really stupid. Okay, I think it's a good introduction to the application that we are going to build together, and let's start making the project from scratch. So first of all, let's uninstall this demo application from the emulator, and after that we just start creating the project. Okay, I can minimize the emulator for now. So let's call the project simple, and I have to tell you that I'm using the newest Android Studio with version 2.1, and I suggest you to update to this version if you haven't done already. Okay, and we are going to make it for phone and tablets, and as always I think the best target API is 4.03, because as it says, it covers 97 point something % of the Android devices in the world. And let's go to the next page. We will be okay with just a simple empty activity this time, and let's, as always, call the first activity main activity. And there we go. Okay, and here we are in the main activity, and we have to wait for the Gradle to build the or index the application for the first time. Now we are ready to work. So as this is a very simple application and we don't have any documentation or user specification, so we just simply start by most obvious stuff. So I'm going to make a new Java class, and I will just name it Note. And this class will be representing the Note objects that you already see. And what we can have in these objects is just simply we need a title, of course, and then we need a content. Then we need the date time of creation time of the note. So let's do like that. Private long and datetime, private string untitled, and private string and content. That's all. And I press Alt and Insert for a constructor, and I want all these three variables to be used in the constructor. And let's see what else we can do. And obviously we need to have setters and getters, but I think for now the only thing that the user is interested in getting is just datetime. So we can have two type of datetime here. First, the datetime itself. Okay, I press Alt and Insert again. I will set a getter for datetime, and I will set a getter for also I have to do for content and title as well. And let's put title above content. And we need to set some setters also. I'm not sure if we are going to use it, but for the sake of completeness, we will put them here. But then we need a special kind of datetime getter function that returns us a date in a string format, not just milliseconds, which is like 11-digit number. So for that we can make our own function and say public the return time will be a string, and let's name it get datetime as string, or we can just say get datetime formatted. And for this case we need a reference to a context because we want to use the time zone of the user, and the way to get the time zone in Android is to have a reference to a context. So I'm going to import the context, and we'll name this argument context, of course. And we will, like the last tutorial, use simple date format. STF, let's say new simple date format, and the format will be anything you would like. DD for days, MM for months, and Y for years, and hours, minutes, and seconds. And let's get the locale. For getting the locale, we need to use the context, as I said, context, and get resources, then get configuration, then locale. Okay. Here is our simple date format. Now we have to set the time zone. Set time zone, we can say time zone dot get default. It will return as the default time zone for the Android device that the user has. And we just simply say return STF dot format, and we have to make a new date object, and we pass it the datetime that we already set for it. And I'm going to import the date package class, sorry, and make sure you import it from the java.util, not the java.sql. And we are done with the note object. So this is the only object that we are going to deal with. Let's go to main activity. At the moment it looks like nothing. Let's make some layout for it. Make some changes in the layout. Let's wait for the designer, and here we are. We don't need this hello world. And as you know, I hate relative layouts. I will change it to the linear layout, and we get rid of these paddings because they are bullshit. And we should set it as orientation vertical. It doesn't matter really, because the only thing we are going to add to this linear layout is just a list view. So I'm going back to the design mode. I will find the list view around here. Here is it, list view. And I will make sure that the width and the height of the list view is field parent, or match parent, doesn't really matter. And as always, I would like to name it with my own naming convention. So as you remember from the first tutorial, I would first say the name of the activity, main, and just say list view notes. Okay. And I'm going back to the main activity now, and I will need a reference for this. I would say private list view list view notes. And you still remember how we can get the reference for it in the onCreate function, and list view notes equals find view by ID, r.id.main list view notes. And of course you have to cast it to a list view by hitting Alt and Enter, or you can manually type this cast code here. So that's great. Now we need kind of a new activity so we can enter new notes in it. So let's start by creating a new activity. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see more clearly. Okay, new Android activity. Let's say just an empty activity like what we have already. And let's call this one note activity. And the layout name activity notes. And it's not going to be a launcher activity because our launcher activity is already the main activity, as you can see in the manifest file. The launcher is main activity, of course. So in the note activity, what we're gonna need is, as I shown you in the demo, let's first change this relative layout to linear layout again for this activity too. And orientation also again vertical. And I'm going back here, and I'm going to put a edit text here. Okay, text field, that's one for the title, and another text field, one for the content. And already the content one should be the height should be the entire area, so call it match parent. And for the first one, let's first of all change their name. The activity name is note activity, so I'm going to say note underscore et for edit text title. And for the content, I would also say note underscore et for edit text and content. Okay, and I'm going to edit the first one for the title. We have to make sure it's a single line edit text, and you have to find somewhere here single line, and make sure you click the single line. Then you go down for the content one, and make sure that you set the gravity to top. So if the user types something, the text starts from the top of it. Okay, that looks good now. And we kind of need to add the add the note menu here for the actions. And for that, I'm going to the resource folder. I will add a new resource file. The type of resource file would be menu, and the file name will be menu, because this resource is going to be used in the main activity. I would call it menu main. Okay, and here we are. And adding menu items is quite easy, as I will show you. First of all, you have to say item, and you have to say it's enabled, so it will be shown by the in the activity. Then you have to give it a title. For example, I will just say create. It doesn't really matter. I will give it an ID, add plus ID, and I will say for actions, my convention is always the word action, then the activity name, action. This is the activity action menu for the main, so I say action underscore main, then the reason of the purpose of the item, and this time it's going to be create. No, just let's name it new note. Okay, and we have to give it an icon, and we are just going to use the internal icons of the Android. So I'm going to use the Android's undrawables, and sorry, Android drawable, and I see menu add. It's the closest icon I know that represents an add function. Okay, then we want to set the ordering category, and the lowest the number, the higher the priority, so I would just say 0. And here's the trick: because we are on Android SDK 4.0.3, we have to use the XML namespace of the support library, and for that we have to add the new namespace here, XMLNS, and we have to call it app, and we have to say I think it was HTTP schemas res auto, yeah. Okay, and the last thing that you have to do is to use this namespace, and I think okay, let's show as action should be always. Okay, so this is going to be our first item. Let's make a comment for it. Add new note. So just this will allow us to have a menu for main activity, but you cannot see it here because we haven't called the menu on the main activity. So I'm here in the main activity.java, and all I need to do is to override on create menu, options menu. So I'm pressing Ctrl O for overrides, and the function I'm looking for is on create options, menu. Okay, and we want to get rid of this the super call, and we want to have the get menu inflator, so we can find the menu from the resources and inflate it in the activity, and we call the inflate method, and the ID of the menu is menu main, as you can see it in the menu folder, the file that we just created. And make sure that to pass the argument that it comes with the overrided function as the second argument of this inflate function, and after all return true, so the Android API doesn't complain. So let's see if we can see the effect on the activity, the design mode. So guess we cannot see it, so let's just try to build this application and see it on the emulator. Okay, Okay, it's going to upload the application to the emulator. Yes, we have the button here, but at the moment it does nothing. And the next step will be make somehow that clicking on this button will bring up the note activity activity. So for that we have to override another function. It's called on options item selected. So let's again get rid of this super call. We have to make a switch over the menu item that this function gives us as an argument, because this menu item will be the same, will have the same ID as the ID that we gave it in the menu resource file. So for example, this one, the ID was action underscore main underscore new note. So we will set we will do a switch on the item. Then we get the item ID, and we simply check some cases against the IDs that we have. So case our ID that's action main new note. And this is why my convention for naming the variables and the resource names useful, because it starts with the action, and therefore we can easily find it. If you have a big application with like thousands of resource names, then the usefulness of this method will be more obvious. Okay, so just break and make sure you have to return true at the end of this function. That's what the API expects us to do, because this is a boolean. And what we want to do: start note activity in new note mode. That's what I call it. So if you remember from the first tutorial, we can call up new activities, bring up new activities with intent note activity. Let's name it new note activity, and make sure to import the intent class and calls new intent. And if you remember, the first argument will be the context that we are already in it, and the second argument will be the name of the class, and it will be note activity dot class. Okay, and just simply say a start activity, and we pass it this new intent that we have created. And for making it even more simple, we can just simply do like this. I will just put it in the argument for this start activity. Okay, that should help us with bringing up the note activity. And if I check my emulator, okay, if I press it, now we are in the edit mode. Okay, so we can put the title, and as we set the single line mode for the first edit text, you can see that we are not allowed to make new lines in it. But for the content, by setting the gravity to top, it will start on the top. If you don't set the gravity, the text will start in the middle of the edit text, and that's not what you possibly want. Okay, and at the moment we cannot do much because we don't have the save option, or we don't have the delete function, and these are going to be the next steps that we'll do shortly. So for the saving, we obviously need to add a action here on the menu bar, and we just follow the same thing that we did for the main activity. So I'm going back to the resources. In the menus, I will add a new menu resource file, and this time I will call this menu underscore note for the note activity. And for some reason that I will tell you later, I will call this new menu underscore note underscore new. Okay, and all we need to do is to copy and paste everything from the main menu file that we already created, and this time we don't need create, we just need something called save, and the ID should be action note underscore save, because the purpose of this item menu is to save the node. And for the icon, I think the best and closest thing should be I think IC underscore, IC stands for icon, of course. Menu, I think there's save. Yes, save. And it will be the highest in the category. And show as action always. So let's see how it looks inside the emulator. So we are in the main activity now, and we are in the I forgot something. Of course, we have to go to the note activity, and again do this on options menu and create options menu. Options. Okay, I'm quickly doing this. Get menu inflator, inflate, then the RID dot menu. Oh, sorry, r dot menu dot menu note new, and the second argument should be the menu itself, and return true, so the API will be happy. Okay, and let's see. Okay, we have the new here, and here is our save button. At the moment we cannot do anything. We have to put this save functionality here in our application, and this is going to be a new concept for you possibly, and the concept is called serialization. I should delete this first and tell you again. Okay, in many programming languages and softwares, when you have an object which is a class, you usually do a serialization, which means the saving the current state of your object as a binary file and save it on the disk for later use, or sending it over network. The serialization is just a concept of saving the state of the object to a usually binary file. So how you do it in Java is you have to make sure that you implement the serializable interface. And let's say again, we are in the node class that we built earlier, and we implemented the serializable interface. And this is funny because this interface does not provide any methods. It's just here so that the Java compiler or the runtime would know that this object is supposed to be serializable. Okay, and one great example of serialization is just when you play some video games, and in the middle of the game you want to close the game and do something else, and when you later come back and load the game, it's the work of the serialization that saves the state of the game objects, the players, the enemies, and the power-ups and stuff. And if you're a smart programmer, you can edit those binary files and give yourself some extra lives and stuff. That's what I used to do in my early days. Okay, enough talk. And then we need some kind of class that takes care of this business logic. For example, saving, loading, and deleting, and stuff like that. So I'm going to make a new class called utilities, and the first First method I will put here is just the save method, public static save note. And for saving a note, we need a reference to a context, because context allows us to talk to the API of the Android device and say, okay, we want to save this file or we want to load that file. Okay, so the first argument is going to be a context, and the second argument you have to guess it's going to be a note. Okay, and the return type of this function, I would say Boolean, because we want to make sure that the save was successful or is a failure. So I'm importing the context class, and yes. So for saving a file, we obviously need a file name. So let's say file name will be, and I think the best file name that will be unique is the datetime of the creation of the note. So we just get that from the note object that we have as an argument here. So we say value of note dot get datetime, the one with the long version, and we can just say plus, and let's give it the extension of that bin. But because maybe later we want to edit this, let's make this as a constant. File extension equals that bin. Okay. Then simply, if later we changed our mind and we wanted to rename this extension, we just edit it here. So let's use the file extension here. Okay. And I missed a parenthesis here. Or no, I didn't miss. I missed it. No, I didn't miss any parentheses. Okay. Or maybe I did. So let's at the end say return true. And if something went wrong in the middle, we just return false. Okay. So to write something on the Android device storage, the internal storage, because Android devices have two kinds of storage. First is the internal, and second is the external. So the internal storage is the one that when you install an application, the Android API will, Android runtime will give a unique space to that application. So you don't need any kind of permissions to write to your own application areas storage. So for writing, we need a file output stream. Let's call it FOS for file output stream. And then we need for serialization to binary an object output stream. And let's name this, I don't know, OOS. Okay. Then we need some try and catch blocks. Catch exception E. Okay, now we can do the stuff. So we can say file output streams equals, from the context we can have the open file output function or method, and then we say, okay, we want a file output with the file name that we specify, and also we have to provide this because we want to let the API know that we want this in the private mode, the private storage area of the application. And while since we have the file output stream, we use the object output stream, and we make a new object output stream, and we pass the file output stream to it. It's a bit messy, but I think it's really easy to follow. So let's make this a bit bigger. Okay. And let's get up with the emulator. Then we just simply say object output stream write object. The object we want to write is note. And finally, we have to close the file output object output stream, and also the FOS file output stream. So make sure that you put these clauses because they are going to consume resources on your device. So the usual exceptions that we have while doing this kind of stuff is usually IO exception. So we can go a level higher, so we can narrow down the problem, and we just simply print the stack tracks of the problem, and if something went wrong, we just say return false. Okay, and tell the user something went wrong. And from my experience, actually nothing will go wrong unless the user has not enough space in his phone or device. That's the only case that I have faced that could lead us to this exception. And that's it. Using this simple function, we can save the object to a disk, provided that that object has the serializable interface. So let's quickly go over it. So we have this function called save note. We have a context that we will provide from the activity, and we have the note that we can get from the activity, of course. Then we create a file name, and the name part of the file will be the date time, the 11-digit time in milliseconds, then the .bin for the extension of the file. Then we use the file output stream and object output stream to write the file to a private storage area for application. Easy as that. Okay, so let's go to the note activity, and let's override on options on menu item. Oh, I don't remember the name. Selected. Okay, and again, next one. On options item selected. Okay. Okay, let's get rid of this supercar. Return true, so we can tell the API that we have handled this click. And again, as just like what we had in the main activity, I would just say switch over item that get item ID, and we should have this case case r dot id dot action main action node save. Okay. Okay, break, and here we can call the function from the utilities class that we created. So let's make a code a bit more clean. So I would make another function here. I will call it private save note. Okay, private void save note. I will just call the save note here, and now we have to go back to our layout file for the note, and you remember that we set this as the title is note underscore et underscore title and underscore content. So we somehow need these two views here. So I will put them here, private edit text met title, private edit text met content, and I will quickly get a reference to them on the onCreate method. Say met title equals find view by id r.id dot notes underscore et title. Make sure to cast it to edit text. I will do the same with et content. Note et content. Okay. And here I will say note equals new note. And you remember in the note object we had this constructor with which gets the content, the date time, and the title. But I think that better way is just to replace this. Move this argument so it's more clear. So we need a date time, we need a title, and we need a content. So I'm going back to the note activity. For the time, we just call system that current time in millis. For the title, we just say et title get text that to string, and for the content we just do the same thing, et content that get text that to string. So our note object is ready now. All we have to do is just say utilities that save note. For the context we just say this, because the activity is a context in some ways, and the second will be the note object. But let's wrap this around in a if statement. If the result is true, we can just say can make a toast. A toast is just a simple notification for the user, and we just use this as context, and we just inform the user that the node is saved. Node is saved. Okay, your node is saved. Okay. Then what we want to do, we want to exit the activity and go back to the main activity. So I just call finish. The finish will cause an activity to go out of a stack of the queue of the activities, and will go get us to the last activity that the user was inside it. And else toast that toast this cannot save the note. Please make sure you have enough space on your device. Toast that, yeah, okay. In any ways, we want to finish the activity, so I would just move it here, the finish. Okay, that's it. Now we have a save note. So let's try it. And we are here in the main activity. I'm going to add a new note, some title. Let's give something meaningful. Our new note. Hooray, we have a saveable note now. Oh. Saveable. Anyway. Okay, let's hope that we get the positive notification. Okay, our note is saved. But we are back in the main activity, and we're supposed to get the list view with the nodes. At the moment we have nothing, and that's going to be our next step. And I think because this video is already too long, I will continue with this application very soon in the third tutorial, and we will finish it by then. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next part of this tutorial. See you.